So today we're going to be doing a review of the Diamondback Hook. I bought this bike a couple months ago. My old bike was falling apart and I really needed a replacement. I chose this hardtail because I ride my bikes really hard, almost abusively, and I need something that can withstand all that. So I had heard great things about the Hook, Line, and Sinker series by Diamondback. So I took a look at the hook. I went out to Performance Bike and test rode it. It was just amazing for a $600 bike. I got this bike for $600. So let's kind of dive into the specs here. So as you see, we got 130 millimeters of travel up front with the Suntour XCM fork. Pretty beefy mechanical front brakes. Despite the fact that they're mechanical, they stop really well. Come with a SRAM X3 in the back. Cheap derailleur, but it shifts well. A 1x system up front. Very comfortable saddle, but performance oriented and light too. Kenda tires. It is a large frame. Really wide handlebars. The handlebars are almost abnormally wide in fitting with the new trend of having crazily wide handlebars. And a lot of the components are just your standard Diamondback DB4L parts like the grips. So I haven't yet been on a bunch of intense trail rides with this bike. I'm planning a trip out to Canaan Valley sometime this summer, and then maybe a trip to Moab in the near future just to test this out. But it's really durable. I have taken it to Fountainhead trails. It stood up perfectly. Brakes are super powerful, super grabby, even though they're mechanicals. So let's take it out for a ride. So when you first get on the bike, it feels really stable. It is a long wheelbase bike with a very slack head tube angle intended for higher speed riding. Got lots of travel. As mentioned before, it has 130 millimeters up front in that XCM Suntour fork. Not really intended for heavy trail riding, but it'll soak up the bumps really good. Maneuver through tight spaces, and it's a little heavier, which is, you just have to muscle it around if it's a big frame. Good thing is it puts power down really well. Like, instead of one of your full suspension bikes that every time you pedal it bobs and you lose half of your energy through the suspension. The 8 gears in the 1x system are more than enough to get you through anything except the very steepest of climbs. Bike's really good for anything. It's got great grip. The Kenda Nevagals have decent grip. I wouldn't recommend them if you're replacing a tire, but they're running on a tube setup. Tires especially have almost no grip when you're riding in gravelly conditions or areas where dirt's wet and isn't packed down. It'll just slip and slide all over the place. Suspension does soak up almost anything really well. If you're jumping, riding off drops, doing anything of that type, it'll just eat it up and you won't have to worry about it. One thing that is a problem is when you land really tail heavy, the bike can sometimes throw you forwards really hard. because it has no suspension in the rear. But considering that it is a hardtail, it performs as well as could be expected. Since the suspension fork is a base level, entry level fork, it does not come with a rebound adjustment, but at your normal setup, it's going to come with very quick rebound, which is perfect for me, even though I do jump around quite a bit. One problem is that your chain falls off all the time. The front chain ring is the worst part on the bike, without a doubt. It is completely horrible, unreliable. If you are riding around and you hit a bump and then put any pressure at all on your chain, it will just fall off in an instant. All in all, this bike is really good. It's a great package. Can take plenty of abuse, especially if you're jumping around. I did have to get my rotors aligned once because I had bent the front rotor out of true. But considering what I was doing to cause that, that's not uncommon. This bike's still really durable. The brakes are great. They're probably the best mechanical brakes you can get for this price, especially considering that they all come as part of a $600 bike. On another note, I would highly recommend getting a bike stand if you ever plan to do bike maintenance. People might recommend some expensive park tool stand, but this stand was not expensive. It's a great stand. It doesn't take all that much to be a great stand. It needs to hold your bike. That's about it. It just makes everything so much easier for bike maintenance. Even the simplest things like changing a tire or lubing a chain or anything like that. As mentioned earlier, the chain does slip off the front chainring a lot. It mostly happens when the chain is under stress or it has just gone over bumps or anything that causes it to jiggle in the back. And then if you put pressure on the pedal, then it'll just slip right off, which is not a problem. You can get a new chainring for about $10. Replace it, have your bike store replace it. It's a very cheap problem. And considering that, yeah, this chainring has very worn teeth already. It wasn't a very good chainring. That's about the only part of the bike that I didn't like the very first time I used it. I have my bike set up almost as it came originally. They had the forks. I ride a large frame, even though I'm not quite 5'10", but I'll grow into it. I put a little more preload in the fork because I was jumping around and it kept bottoming out, and I know I just hate that sound. My saddle's dropped all the way, and this bike has a pretty aggressive geometry. It's intended for all mountain riding is what it says on the Diamondback website. But really, I feel like I could take this to a bike park. I could ride some downhill with it, even though it's a hardtail. The 130mm fork absorbs bumps really well. It's taken quite a hammering, and it's never had issues. It's a great fork. It is a base model, an SR Sun Tour, not the most high-end brand or fork, but it's probably the cheapest bike you can get that comes with 130mm of travel up front. On the back of the fork here, it does say, use only for leisure cross country. Do not use for free ride, downhill, dirt jumping, or any hard riding. So in summary, this is a great bike. The entire Diamondback lineup is probably the best brand you can get. Any bike, low priced. It's the best part. You can't get any other bike out there for this cheap it's got all of the features it has. And some of the components may not be the highest tier, lightest carbon components, but they work. I need durability more than I need lightness and speed. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. If you have any ideas for a new video, you can put them in the comments. You can also email us at d.c.mtb365@gmail.com. This is MTB365.